Well, good morning and happy Saturday to everybody. We're going to get started in just a little bit. Ha ha! The music ran out. I think it did. Well, at any rate, great to have all of you here this morning. Looks like for a busy Saturday, we've got a fairly good sized audience already. A little bit over 1,000 people, close to 1,100 people. I don't know if the owner is going to make it today or not. Out in New Mexico, it is 2 hours earlier. So it's only about 7 a.m. on a Saturday morning. And I know that Stephen has been struggling with some health issues. And so it's a little bit harder for any of us to get out of bed if we've been battling, health issues and sickness, that sort of thing. So hopefully he can pop in. But if not, he can watch it later as a video, and that's fine as well. So, but it's great to have everybody here this morning. And I'm not about the size of the audience. I'm grateful that we have so many that have gotten up early on a Saturday morning to join us. And I hope that they will feel comfortable to step out of the shadows soon and join us in the live chat so we can get to know them. They can get to know us. And the leadership team can make them feel welcome. So we're going to be covering a number of things today, obviously presenting Stephen's Singer 1591. And I'm going to give you the serial number so you can help us look it up. And also we're going to be doing some DIY stuff. We're going to be doing some mechanical maintenance on the upper tension that is built into the faceplate on the Singer 1591 and also the Singer 1590 as well, which is a belt-driven version of this machine. But we're also going to be doing some body maintenance as well. And when I say body maintenance, don't get afraid. We're not going to be doing push-ups or calisthenics or something like that. I'm going to be giving you some DIY tips on cleaning up the finish of a sewing machine without damaging the clear coat and the paint. And inevitably, as machines sit around, they develop a thick coat, almost like scales on the clear coat and paint that is old caramelized oil. And people will try different techniques to try to clean up the paint. Sometimes they end up damaging the paint surface. Well, I'm going to give you a proven method to strip this stuff down and not damage that clear coat or damage that paint surface as well. So hopefully you find all of these DIY tips helpful. And then we're going to jump into putting this muscular 1591 to work so you can see the benefits of the engineering design of these direct drive potted motors. They started way back in the day with the Singer 101 that I've shown on this channel before. Then they got into the 1591 and then eventually the 201-2. Also, I need all of you to please remind me to highlight some AI errors that are on the internet right now about this model. AI is trying to be the front runner and the leader in documenting details about sewing machines. And in many cases, the AI is getting it wrong. And they certainly did with the 1591. If you do a Google search right now and it's AI related, you're going to see some facts presented about the 1591 that are categorically incorrect. Categorically incorrect. But we're going to set it straight today. And then in your circles, you can educate people on the truths of this very cool model. So let me give you the serial number to start. The serial number on this model, and I'm going to type it in the live chat as well. The serial number on this model is AJ, A like Apple, J like Juliet, 052527. And I'm also sending it into the live chat as well. So if someone wants to help look this up, give us the month, the day, and the year that it was born, that Stevens machine was born, that's heading to New Mexico, and how many were made in that production group size. And once you get that date, you're going to see that it was very close, very, very close to the centennial birthday of the Singer Sewing Machine Company. Very, very, very close. All right, let me see if I can find a little bit more music to put on, and then we're going to get into this and have some fun. Hold on one second. Oops, I just hit the wrong button and I stopped my play. Hold on a second. I'm getting close here. All right. Well, I was doing my best to help the doctor and the doctor's wife to do a little bit of dancing to that fun music. And I didn't do such a great job, but at least I didn't drop them like the microphone the last time. I'm hoping that our microphone is continuing to hang in there and that you can hear me clearly in this live stream. Also, remember, if you're in the live stream, when you have an opportunity, go ahead. If you think we deserve it, go ahead and like this live stream. Looks like we only have about 2 likes right now, and that's okay. But when you get a chance, go ahead and click like if you would. And we're going to jump into this DIY straight away. I just have to real quick blow my nose. It's kind of cold in the workshop this morning, and my nose is going, but I can't complain. It's a lot warmer here than it is in a lot of places. I know that our friends in throughout the whole Midwest, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Illinois, Indiana even, have been shivering with the temperatures and the snow and everything else. So I've got no complaints. I've got no complaints at all. It's been really, really nice here. Been getting outside a lot and just enjoying what is an early spring right now, an early spring. But I guess the folks on the West Coast have been just getting literally cooked with the temperatures out there. They've been suffering with the temperatures. I think almost in the hundreds in California, Nevada. I don't know if Oregon and Washington State have been getting warm as well, but certainly all of those other regions. So our friends that are out in California that follow our work, keep them in mind and hope that their air conditioning keeps working. Yeah, for sure. All right, I tooted my nose, and now we're going to jump into a little bit of DIY on the upper tension on this class 15. And it looks like, let's see, March 9th, 1949, and 50,000 units. And I think, is that Liam that got that? I don't know the names as well as the leadership team because I don't spend a lot of time in the live chat, but whoever got that answer, well done. That's absolutely correct. And you remember that the centennial year for Singer is 1951. So this machine that's heading to New Mexico would have been on the production line almost at the very same time that they started making those centennial machines. They usually would start the centennial machines about a year and a half, sometimes almost 2 years out from when they were going to be celebrating that milestone. So Stevens' machine would have been going down the line, and right behind it would have been those centennial badge mark machines. And certainly some of them would have been 1591s as well. So, but wonderful, wonderful, wonderful machines, and what a wonderful milestone for Singer as well. Yeah, Leland, that's what I thought. We just had a chance to recognize Leland for getting involved and providing those insights and answers. We just mailed him a special package not too long ago, and he was tickled pink to get his micro screwdrivers. And also I included a special little bonus as well, that if he wants to share what that was, he can certainly do that. I think he shared that in one of the previous live streams also. And but let me head over by this machine, and I've got a belt on top of Stevens' machine right now. This is Stevens' 1949 1591 right there. And you can see some of those areas that we're going to be trying to clean up a little bit. This caramelized oil stuff right here that can get onto the clear coat, and it kind of sticks to it. It sticks to it like glue. We got some up here as well on the arm of the machine. I'm going to move this belt out of the way because we don't need this. Unless this were a Singer 1590, then we might need this belt, but we don't now. And you can see even on the light, this caramelized oil builds up on the light as well and sticks to it just like glue. So in a little bit, I'll show you how to address some of these areas. I've already hit some of them a little bit along here, and you can see that it strips off the oil without hurting the finish, which is definitely a good thing. And then I also went through Stevens' machine as well. From 1949, they've got a gorgeous faceplate. You can see that right now. Compared to this one that we're going to be working on is more of a plain Jane faceplate that would have been from a later era on a Singer 1591. Yeah, let me put down the camera and we'll see if we can take a look at this faceplate and do a little bit of servicing on it so you're comfortable doing that. I also have, you can see I've got different bobbins along here. I was also going to mention a special honorable mention to our friends at Walmart that have developed their own line of sewing products. They're called Hello Hobby. You might remember, if you've been with us for a long time, I tested some of the Hello Hobby needles back in the day. Some of them did okay. Some of them didn't do well at all. And you might remember I got a note from one of their vice presidents of marketing thanking us for giving them a chance and trying their needles out. Well, since that time, just because others also tried them after we presented them on this channel, and they also got some not so great results. You might notice if you go into your Walmart now, and possibly other locations that are carrying the Hello Hobby product line that was introduced by the Walmart Corporation, they pull those needles off of these shelves now. They don't have them anymore. They're trying to push the Singer needles, which the contemporary Singer needles are not any better than the Hello Hobby needles. And I hope that folks will maybe back off from buying those as well and focus on buying Schmetz needles. Schmetz needles is consistent in their quality. Singer contemporary needles are not so great. And but the Hello Hobby bobbins that they're making now, let me get back on track here, are really quite good. And I want to show you what those look like right now on camera. We're actually going to be sewing with a Hello Hobby Class 15 bobbin during the live stream today. And when I measured the specs on these, they're much, much more accurate in their dimensions, and also the quality and the grade of the metal that they're using on them. It's much better than some of the other aftermarket ones that are coming out of China. So I would strongly encourage you, if you have a Class 15 machine, consider picking up a pack of these at Walmart or wherever they're selling them. They might be selling them online as well. And you're going to be really pleased with the way they perform in your machine. Really, really an excellent, excellent bobbin that Walmart is putting out. They couldn't quite nail it with needles, so now they're going to try to nail it with bobbins, and I think they hit it out of the ballpark. These are really excellent. Okay, enough on bobbins for a moment. Let me set these off to the side, and we will begin the process. Oh, let me hit you with one other question. Let me hit you with one other question that relates to. Well, actually, I've got so many thoughts in my head this morning. My mind is going like a percolator. Let me first of all, before I forget to do it, because I know I'll forget to do it otherwise. Let me first of all set the record straight on the production. Leon already gave us the production year and everything on Stephen's machine, but if you do an AI search. If you do an AI search on the 1591, what they're going to tell you is, let me grab my glasses. What they're going to tell you is that the 1591 series was introduced in 1930. Does anyone know what the real year of the introduction of the Class 1591 was? Because it wasn't 1930. Which is showing up in the AI search, which tells me that the AI bots or whatever they are harvesting information from a location on the internet, someone's web page, someone's podcast, someone's Facebook page, whatever it is. They're harvesting it from a location that has inaccurate information. Because the Class 1591 was not started in 1930. It was not. It was actually started in 1932. So I don't know if anyone got that or not, but it was actually started in 1932. So they missed the mark on that. $1591K is. I would love to. I would love for you, if you think yours was made in 1905, Leon, I'd love for you to send me a picture of your serial number so I could look it up, because the earliest Class 15 would have been the 15-1, which was produced right around 1895. And after that would have been the 1511, the 1522. Let's see what else we've got. The 1530. And the 1530 would have been produced from around 1894 until 1953. And then we had the 1575. And then we had the 1580. And then we had the 1586, the 15, good gravy, what is that? The 1587, something setting our notifications off. Let me see if I can silence that real quick. Oh, that was one of our cameras. I'm going to see if I can silence that. Where was I? 1587 was from 1930 to 1950. And then the 1588 would have come out after that from 19. There we go. I think I got it now. As far as the notifications, then the 1588 would have come out from 1930 to 1950. Then the 1589 And then the 1590 would have come out just slightly before the 1591, which the 1591 was produced from 1932. The 1591 was produced from 1932 to 1956. 1932 to 1956. So I'm not sure. Yeah. Leland's saying he's way off. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, there were so many class 1591s. Here's where AI got it wrong again. AI, first of all, broadcast to the world and is broadcasting to the world right now that the class 1591 was made from 1930 to 1956. Well, they got the ending year right, but they got the starting year wrong. So again, for the record, and all of you in the audience right now, whether you're in the live chat or not, help me set the record straight. The class 1591 was produced from 1932, not 1930, from 1932 until 1956. And the other part that AI got wrong is they said it was the widest production class within the Singer family, produced for the longest duration. That's also incorrect. The longest production run was actually with a big brother, as I call it, to the 1591. Does anyone remember what the big brother to the class 1591 was? Because that was produced longer than the 1591. What is the big brother to the 1591? It also has a potted motor. It also has a similar hook system, but it's got a full size body instead of a 3/4 size body like the 1591. What is that machine? Does anyone remember? Yeah, Jingle Bells, exactly. Not the 301. The 301 is actually one of the first in the series of the Slant-O-Matic machines, Tim. But that's a great answer. The 301 actually, but you're really close. If you change the first digit, of that, you're going to be right on it. You're going to be right on it. So if someone would type in the live chat, the big brother to the 1591 that we're going to be presenting today, that's heading to New Mexico, is the 201-2. The 201-2, remember, about 25 years ago, I was the first in the world to refer to it as the Rolls-Royce of Singer sewing machines. And when we did that fundraiser for the History Museum in Indiana, and I was walking through that big mansion that's co-located with the 7 galleries in that area, where we raised about almost $12,000 to help them out during the pandemic. They also had a 201-2 that was owned by that millionaire family. That millionaire family down in South Bend, Indiana, could have picked any machine that they wanted, and they picked the 201-2. And I explained to the curator for that mansion the significance of that model. And she said, every single group that I walk through now that has the privilege of getting into this private area of the mansion, we got access to an area of the mansion because of our fundraising efforts of helping them that no one else on a general tour gets into. And that's how I was able to help her understand the significance of that sewing machine that millionaire family in South Bend, Indiana picked out to be in their mansion. And she was like, whoa, I didn't know that. And it was really cool. And that's what our job is in this classroom, is to educate people, right? I'm not the only teacher. We're all teachers in being able to educate people on the significance of what's happening in the world of sewing. whether it's a 1591 from 1949 like we're going to be sewing on today, or whether it's a machine like this right over here that I'm working on right now. This machine right here that is contemporary. I mean, it's a contemporary Janome machine that we're working on for a family out of Tennessee. This particular one is a Janome Skyline S5. Janome Skyline S5, and we'll be presenting this on the channel soon enough. But we work on everything from contemporary to antique to you name it, we work on it. Let's see here. Get that back down there. There we go. But yeah, the Class 15 was not the most or the longest run production vintage machine. It was actually the 201-2. The 1591 was produced again from 1932 to 1956, which would give it a 24-year run. That's pretty doggone impressive. But the 201-2, the Rolls-Royce of Singer sewing machines, was produced from 1935 until 1961. Someone do the math. How many years is that? 1935 to 1961 is how long the 201-2, the Rolls-Royce of Singer sewing machines, was produced. The big brother to the 1591 was produced longer. And AI says the opposite. AI, if you do a search of the 1591, they're going to say produce longer than any other Singer sewing machine. No, not at all. Not even close. So how long was that? Yeah, 35 to 61. Well done, Susie. How many years is that? Somebody do the math. Because it's more than 24 years. It's more than 24 years, which is how long the 1591 was produced. Somebody do the math. Come on, y'all. Wake up. It's early Saturday morning. Aha! Come on. From 1935, 26 years. Well done, Leland. Well done. 26 years they produce the Rolls-Royce of Singer sewing machines. Now, if you'll type another fact into the live chat, and Leland, would you be so kind as to type this in the live chat, is from 1948 to 1951. So in the same year that Stevens 1591 would have been born, 1948 to 1951, the Rolls-Royce company used the big brother, the 201-2, to sew the interior leather panels on their luxury cars. 1948 to 1952. So at the same time that they were using the big brother of Singer sewing machines, the 201-2, Stevens machine that we're going to be sewing on today was produced at the very same time. I think that's pretty doggone cool. Oh, and actually, Susie, I actually wanted Leland to be able to type that in the live chat. Go ahead and delete yours, dear. Go ahead and delete yours and give Leland the opportunity to type the same thing in. I want to get our other audience members involved. The leadership team does such a great job of driving the live stream and taking care of the family, but I want others to jump in as well and be able to type these facts in to document what AI, artificial intelligence, is getting wrong. Artificial intelligence is getting it wrong in a lot of areas. And they'll even put a disclaimer on a lot of their searches. They'll put on the bottom, this information that we're giving you might be inaccurate. Yeah, because they're not harvesting it from the cow country family. If they harvest it from the cow country family, they're going to nail it every single time. If they harvest it from Facebook and other places like that, where people are shooting in the dark and they're not as smart as all of you in this live stream right now, they're going to get it. They're going to get it wrong. they're going to get it wrong a lot of times. All right. Let me get off of my high horse right now and stop beating up AI, although they deserve it. And what I'm going to do real quick, and then I promise we're going to jump into this DIY. We're going to jump into this DIY, but I want to give a major challenge to someone. I read down a number of the Singer model or Singer Class 15 models. If anyone is willing to scribe on a piece of paper, because you're probably not going to be able to type it quick enough, but I'm going to go from beginning to the very end of every model in the Class 15 family. And then if someone that scribes it down is able to type it into the live chat, whether it's a leader, whether it's another member in the audience, I don't care. But it will give you an idea of how wide and expansive the Class 15 models were. And as Leland highlighted, some of them were made over in the UK. Some of them were made in other parts of the world. And some of them also were post-World War II clones made by the Japanese. So there were Class 15s copied all over the world. But we also had a lot of Class 15 models within the Singer family. And I'm going to start reading them right now. So if anyone's willing to document it and, just give us an idea in the live chat of how many subclasses there were in the Class 15 model, it's going to blow a lot of people away that look at the live chat later as a video, and they're going to be like, holy cow, I had no idea that there were that many Class 15 subclasses. It's just crazy. It's absolutely crazy. So I'm going to take a deep breath, and then I'm going to start reading these, but I'm going to take a sip of tea that Susie made me first. And yes, it has sweetener. Ha ha! Yes, it has sweetener. All right. I'm going to put on some music real quick for you first, and then we're going to get into this hot and heavy. All right. How about a little bit more Latino music? And yeah, here we go. All right, let me pause the music. All right, I'm going to pause the music. I took a real deep breath, so I'm going to do my best. And I'm going to start with the first Class 15 model and then go all the way to the very end. Let me put on my glasses so I don't miss any. So if you've got your pencils, your pens, your crayons ready, whoever captures, I want to show you what you're going to get. I want to show you what you're going to get before you get it. Hold on a second. Our friends at Guggenheim, they produce such a wonderful product, and it is produced in China. I'm just going to say that up front, but it's produced to such a level of precision. It's just amazing. So the first one, I don't think I've given any of these away. Guggenheim, interestingly, Stephen at Guggenheim shares the same name as our owner of the machine we're presenting today. But I don't think Stephen from Guggenheim lives in New Mexico. Maybe he does. But because he loves what we do and the fact that we promote the professional tailoring shears that they make, he sent Susie and I just a stockpile of some of the coolest professional tailoring shears that they make, including one of their latest models, which is an 11-inch professional tailoring shears. And that's what I'm going to give away to the first person. I don't care if it's a leader or someone else, but whoever posts it first in the live chat, capturing all of the models within the Class 15 model that I'm going to read off in just a few seconds, is going to win this pair of an 11-inch professional tailoring shears. They come with a unconditional lifetime warranty. If anything happens to them, if your gerbil chews them up. I'd love to meet that gerbil. If your cat throws them out of a window and they break, if your dog, buries them in the yard and you can't find them, Guggenheim is pretty faithful about saying, we're going to send you a brand new pair. They stand behind that lifetime unconditional guarantee. And this is what it's going to look like right here. An 11-inch pair of professional tailoring shears. Now, Susie already got a pair because she's the wizard's wife, okay? But you can be the second in the world. I don't care where you live. We're going to mail them to you. If you live in Holland, if you live in Germany, if you live in Sweden, if you live in Switzerland, if you live in Australia, if you live in Japan, I don't care. We're going to mail them off to you if you're the first to post all of the Class 15 models that I'm going to read off right now, okay? So get ready, get ready, get ready. All right. So I already read some of these off before when Leland had posted about his UK model. But I'm going to read them again now. Okay, you ready? The first model was, and you don't need to worry about the dates. I'm going to give you the dates that are available to me that I believe are reliable, but you don't need to do the dates, just the models, okay? The Class 15-1, produced from 1879 until around 1895. And that was a spoked wheel version. Again, you don't have to write that either. I'm just letting you know. And it was a long beak shuttle design as well. Then came the 1511, spoked wheel and a plain knob on it, and a fiddler style bed, a fiddler bed. Yeah. Then came the 1522, spoked wheel, long beak shuttle, plain knob, rectangular bed. Again, all I need is the model. I don't need all the other details. I'm just giving that so that the audience that watches this later or the audience now says, oh, I didn't know that was a fiddle bass. Yeah. After the 1522 came the 15-30, produced from 1894 until 1953. It had a spoked wheel, it had a plain knob, and it was a treadle and also a hand crank model as well. Then came the 15-75, solid balance wheel. It was produced as a external belt-driven machine with a potted gear drive and also as a 15-125, similar to that. After the 1575 came the 15-80, spoked wheel, plain knob, and you could not drop the feed dogs. Actually, all the models I've read, you can't drop the feed dogs so far. After the 15-80 was the 15-86, produced from around 1930 to 1960, spoked wheel, and it was a rectangular bed. You could not drop the feed dogs. Then came the 15-87. From 1930 to 1950, it was produced. It was a solid balance wheel, rectangular bed. You could 15-88, produced from 1930 to 1950, spoked wheel. It had a round plate. It did have reverse, and it was a treadle and also an electrified machine as well. Finally, with a 1588, you were able to drop the feed dogs. Then came the 1589. It was a hand crank, and it was a near identical version to the 15-88. Then came the 15-90, solid balance wheel, round needle plate. You could drop the feed dogs, and it had an external motor, an electrified motor. Finally, the model we're going to be featuring today, the 15-91, was produced from 1932, not 1930, like AI was saying, until 1956. It has a round plate. It has reverse. You can drop the feed dogs, and it has a potted motor, a built-in motor with direct drive. Then came the 1596 spoked wheel, rectangular plate over the feed dogs. And here's the weird thing. It was a later model. The 1596 was a later model than the machine we're featuring today, the 1591, and yet you can't drop the feed dogs on it. What the heck? Why would Singer revert back to a machine where you couldn't drop the feed dogs? It's kind of goofy, isn't it? So after the 1596 came the 1597. I'm not gonna give you all the details because I'm running out of breath. Came the 1597, then the 1598, then the 15110, the 15111, the 15112, the 15125, which was produced from 1955 to 1958, and then the 15-115, which I kind of took out of order a little bit, from 1912 to 1935. I think that's my last one. Yeah, that's it. So those are all the Class 15 subclasses, if you will, that Singer produced. There were additional Class 15s, again, that the Japanese made. They were kind of clone machines. But if you capture all of those Singer model subclasses that I just read off, and you can write them in the live chat first, whether you're a leader, whether you're anyone else, I don't care, you're going to win those 11-inch professional tailoring Guggenheim shears. And I don't care where you live again. Susie and I will mail them to you. Okay? All right. So there you go. There you go. There you go. There you go. All right. Let me put on some music, and then we're going to finally do this DIY. How long have we been running? We've been running about 48 minutes. I'm just trying to keep an eye on time. I'm going to fast forward. I want to get to some real Latino music. Oh, this song goes forever. That's not Latino music. Come on, give me some Latino music. Leaping Lizards, that's piano music. Come on. No. Come on. Come on, give me some real Latino music. I love Latino music. Come on. That's not it. That's marching music. Leaping Lizards. No. Come on. Yeah, we're getting closer. We're getting closer. No. Oh, Jiminy Crickets. Come on. No. That's elevator music. No, that's like space age music. Where is all this stuff coming from? Come on, guys, give me some Latino music. Come on. No. Okay, I give up. That's close enough. All right, I'm going to pause this real quick. Now, hopefully you can hear me okay. I'm going to move the microphone just a little bit. I'll move the microphone a little bit closer, so hopefully you can hear me. So let's start on this DIY stuff. I know y'all like it when I do the DIY stuff. In order to, on this particular design for the Class 1591, um, the only way you can get to the point of starting to take it apart is turning this all the way counterclockwise so that it releases the tension on that spring a little bit. Because what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to push this plate down. If you can see me doing that, we're going to have to push this plate down right here with the numbers on it and then turn this knob at the same time in order to take this tension component apart. So I'm going to pull this down like this. I'm going to start turning this. We'll get that off. And I'm going to put these in the order that they're going to be going back on. I just kind of pulled the whole thing apart. Daggone it. We take this off next. Lost one of my parts. Take this off. Take the spring out. Take the centering point off. Make sure you can see. Yeah, we're in pretty much the right order. We move these bobbins back. We take our disc 1 off, our disc number 2. We take our little mounting plate off here. We'll take that off, but we're not done yet. Now we have to take this stem and the check spring out as well, the take-up spring. How do we do that? It's locked in place. We've got to loosen this little screw right here on the bottom. You see that little screw right there? We got to take that screw out, or at least loosen it enough that we can remove this, because we're going to have to clean all of that area up. This screw on top, the top one, is going to be to adjust the pitch of the check spring. I've talked about that before, where if you have a wider swing on the check spring when it's when the machine is sewing, it's going to be pulling up harder on that lock stitch, and it's going to be able to define that lock stitch on the bottom more readily. So as you rotate it down and you create more downward pressure on the take-up spring, this one right here, you're going to be pulling that thread harder in the sewing process, and you won't have to battle the tension with bird nesting on the bottom as much. But I've got to get a screwdriver first so we can take that out. And then we'll be able to clean that area as well. So I'm going to take this right here. I'll loosen this little screw on the bottom. And if it's a little bit stiff, sometimes you can see all the caramelized oil all over that screw. If it gets a little bit stiff, you'll want to stay away from the spring, because the spring is a lot lighter gauge metal. But over here, you're safe. Oh, I got to take out my, I should take out my pin as well. Make sure when you're doing this, as you saw me do right there, you kind of tilted it like this, and then your pin release to release the tension will come out as well. I'm going to set that over here. But if it's a little bit hard to get that screw, you don't want to strip the screw, then use a little torch like this to heat it up and just aim that away from where the spring is right now. Heat that screw up a little bit to loosen it up. And now I'm going to put it against here. We should be able to get that screw out, hopefully okay. There we go. And you don't have to take it all the way out, just loosen it enough. And then this should wiggle loose. Sometimes it sticks in there with a lot of that caramelization. See how I kind of twisted it a little bit? So now we've got our faceplate totally by itself. We've got our mounting stem. We're going to take that little spring off. The spring is going to have a little catch on the bottom that's going to slide into, when you slide it in, it's going to slide into these grooves right here and keep it from continuing to turn. It's going to hold it in place. So we're going to clean all these, and then we're going to reassemble it. And yeah, set that right there, right there, right there. And while I'm cleaning this, I'll put on a little bit of music because I don't want to utterly bore you. We'll give you something to listen to while we're doing that. And I'm going to be using a combination of rubbing alcohol, and also I might use my Dremel to clean some of the parts as well. So a combination of rubbing alcohol, Dremel, and then we'll be oiling some of the parts as well when we reassemble it. I'll get my rubbing alcohol out, some of my oil, and again, the oil mix that I use most of the time is a 50-50 blend of kerosene and crystal clear white sewing machine oil. Some people call it lily white sewing machine oil, but I use that because it doesn't have any colorization in it. And I use the kerosene because the kerosene is going to be a rust inhibitor and keep the parts lubricated much longer than standard sewing machine oil. Okay. All right. Let me put on a little bit of music and then we'll resume. And I see that some folks, or it looks like Jenny may have posted the potential answer for all of the class 15 subclasses. I've got them written down. Actually, I have them down on a sheet. If Susie wants to come into the workshop and get that sheet, she can cross-check what Jenny typed, and that way we'll know right away as we're doing this DIY whether or not Jenny nailed it. So if Susie wants to come and get that sheet, I'll go ahead and give that to her, and she can use that as a reference point to fact check Jenny's answers. Here you go. Sure. So Susie has the answer key now. I just gave it to her, and she's going to fact check to see if Jenny got it. And if she did, then I'm going to be mailing 11-inch professional tailoring shears by Guggenheim with a lifetime warranty to Jenny out in Ohio. And I think it's crazy how many subclasses there are, but it is. It is what it is. All right. Let's see if I can find some Latino music to put on. Oh, yeah. Finally. All right, here we go. All right, you'll notice that I'm using steel wool, and I'm going to have to grab my vacuum and clean all this up afterwards. But steel wool is a wonderful tool to use on cleaning up chromed finishes like this. You've got to apply a fair amount of pressure. You can't tell how much pressure I'm applying, but I'm applying a fair amount of pressure to try to get that caramelized oil off. Now, when you're doing the back side of this right here where I'm pointing, be careful because that's a solder point for one of the thread points on the faceplate. You can see that thread point right there. It's soldered on the back. And so when you go over that, be a little bit more delicate so you don't break that solder point. And then you'll have a thread point missing on your faceplate, which is not good. But you can see it's fairly easy. I'm using a little bit of my kerosene oil mixture to break down the oil and then using the steel wool to clean it up at the same time. And I'm not going to do this to perfection. If this were a customer machine, I would do it to perfection. But you can see with little effort, look at how we cleaned up the back of that. And some people would, kind of argue and say, well, why are you, who cares? No one sees it. All they see is the shiny side. But you don't leave oil and dirt behind because it's going to migrate then into the component area where the faceplate pieces are moving, and it's going to eventually stick to that. It's like a little cancer. So we get all the junk cleaned off and get that nice and clean on the back, just like we do on the front. Now, some of these areas are a little bit tighter, like around that thread point. What I would use is I would use a small Dremel brush. Let me see if I can grab one. I think I've got one in the bag. I would use a small Dremel brush similar to this, and I would work around those tighter areas with this. And then if you get any, you won't get any scratches, but if you get any scratches, you can take it out with that steel wool easily enough. I'm just going to get around here. And again, I'm not going to do it to perfection. I'm just going to get most of the junk off of it just to demonstrate. There we go. There's more in there, but we can just imagine that it's absolutely clean. Same thing around here. It's a little bit tighter space. You can use a small Dremel brush like this by hand to get in there. You could certainly use the Dremel, but the Dremels tend to be a little bit aggressive on chrome, and we don't want to tear up that chrome on the faceplate. So I just use a hand one and just kind of work it like this. You can see it's coming off very easily. Get that area cleaned up. And again, just imagine that it's absolutely clean, because that's what I would do with a customer machine. But this is just for a DIY. The same thing on the inside where it's going to mount. You're going to clean that area as well, because we're going to be sliding different components back in there. There we go. You can see there's still a lot of dirt on there, but imagine that it's absolutely clean. And we'll move on to the next step of reassembling it and cleaning those individual parts as well. The only problem with steel wool, and I usually will clean something like this over a garbage can, is it leaves just a huge debris field, doesn't it? It leaves a big debris field, which, yeah, it is what it is. Okay. Now we're going to take our little stem. That's going to be our anchoring point for the entire upper tension. And I'm going to use a Dremel on this to clean it up a little bit quicker. So I'm going to go ahead and get my Dremel going. Kind of just go over this. I'll make sure you have, let me shut it off real quick. Make sure you have eye protection on when you're doing this, because these little barbs on the Dremel heads will fly off, and you don't want to get hit in the eye with one of these little barbs, okay? Okay, and then usually what I'll do as well is I'll follow up after using the Dremel on it, because the Dremel is going to break apart the crud and the dirt, but it's not necessarily going to remove all of it. It kind of breaks it up, and then a lot of those little pieces are still sticking onto the component. So you'll want to take a Q-tip swab then with a little bit of rubbing alcohol, and you'll want to swab over each of these parts as you're reassembling it. So we'll start with this one, kind of clean down here, clean around there. Again, I'm going to do this much more expeditiously than I would on a customer machine. I would take it very, very slow and methodical, but I'm just doing it for demonstration purposes here. So this part, we've done a decent job of cleaning. You also want to clean the threads as well. The threading on here where that adjusting dial is going to be screwing on and turning on as well, so that it turns more freely. Get that part. We're going to put our clean parts back by our bobbins for right now. Then we're going to start assembling shortly. I'm also going to swab the inside of here as well. And you can certainly, if you're careful about it, You can also use a Q-tip swab with a little bit of rubbing alcohol, but you'll want to lower that caustic factor by adding a little bit of sewing machine oil to it as well if you want to clean off some of the caramelization off of the chromed areas. So if I wanted to real quick tidy up this faceplate before I reassemble it, got a lot of crud right there. You can kind of see that. I can just swab over it, but I need to add just a little bit of sewing machine oil so that it's not quite as caustic and aggressive against that chrome finish. Then as I swab over it, you can see just with a little bit of swabbing, look at what we get off of that. It's a big difference, isn't it? So I'm not going to clean all of that up, but that's an alternative. And then what I would do just to protect your chrome, after you clean it like that with a little bit of rubbing alcohol and sewing machine oil, go ahead and go over that surface one more time with only sewing machine oil so you neutralize the effect of any of that rubbing alcohol that might still be on the chrome finish. It will actually continue to have an active presence and an active agent that will eat away at the chrome. Same thing with a clear coat. So by putting the sewing machine oil on there after you clean it quickly, you stop that action. You stop that effect where it's not going to damage your chrome. Okay? Hopefully that makes sense. You can see with little effort, we did a little bit more cleanup. We could be a lot more detailed, but we're going to go ahead and move forward and clean the rest of these components and then reassemble it. We have a lot more things to do in this live stream. So I think what we'll focus on now is our spring. We'll go ahead and focus on our spring next. And for that, I don't recommend using a Dremel. I recommend that you simply use a little bit of rubbing alcohol, and then we'll use a little bit of machine afterwards. So I'll get another Q-tip swab, a little bit of isopropyl alcohol. But again, if you use rubbing alcohol anywhere on your sewing machine, with the exception of forged steel parts, you don't need to worry about that as much. Always make sure that you stop the action of that rubbing alcohol from eating into the surface by neutralizing it with sewing machine oil. Okay. So I'm just gently swabbing over this take-up spring, this check spring. Get those areas as clean as we can. Remember, it has that little barb on the bottom that's going to grab this part of the upper tension. So if you're using a Q-tip swab, you don't want to snag it and bend that or deform it in any way. So you'll want to come from the top and just gently swab the inside so that you're not down by that little barb that's going to mount to the stem that goes into the faceplate area. Just swab it like that gently. Get that extra dirt off. You can see that. Always have to be real gentle with springs because they can become deformed or bent, and then they won't do their job properly. Okay. I'm going to take our upper tension stem now. We're going to slide our little spring back on. There we go. You see how it kind of seats in there, and then it locks. That little barb inside of there locks on here. Go and slide it back in to our faceplate. Oh, it kind of slid off of there a little bit. And this is a little tricky because this particular stem has to go far enough in and go all the way to the bottom that it's going to extend out a little bit on the bottom. Otherwise, when you go to release the pressure foot lever, it's not going to release the upper tension. So make sure you put a lot of pressure like this, pinch it between your thumb and your finger. I even sometimes use a leather mallet just to gently tap it into place to make sure it goes all the way in. See, we just got it further through there. Matter of fact, I'm going to grab my leather mallet and just gently tap it to make sure that we're all the way down to the bottom. And it's a very gentle tap. It's not an aggressive tap, okay? So I got right here. I just give it a gentle little tap. Okay. That way we know it's seated all the way down. And now what we have to do is we have to decide how much tension we want on that spring. So as I rotate this now it's all the way down, I've got to rotate this down so it rests on this little ledge. There's a little ledge right there that will stop the spring from going any further down. Take it all the way down to there. I'm going to check my tension return. Very, very nice. That's absolutely spot on. About 5 ounces of return. I'm going to put just a little bit of oil in there to keep that spring moving freely. Don't oversaturate it. Now we need to clean our release pin, our little release pin that we dumped out. And I usually use a Dremel on this, but you could certainly use steel wool. You could use rubbing alcohol because it's a hardened steel. It's not going to degrade in any way. But for purposes of getting it done quicker, I'll just go ahead and real quick hit it with the Dremel. And again, after you clean a part, don't assume that it might look like it's clean, but we need to swab it a little bit with some rubbing alcohol to make sure that we get any of those deposits off that the Dremel brush left behind. So I'm going to go and swab this pin because this pin is so essential and needs to move freely, doesn't it? It needs to move freely without being inhibited as you're raising and lowering that pressure foot lever. You don't want this pin to be sticky in any way. So we're getting all those deposits off that the Dremel may have left behind. Now we're going to put a little bit of oil on the pin itself. And then we're going to slide it into position inside of our mounted stem. There we go. You see our pin, I think you can see it, sort of. Our pin is kind of sticking through the backside now. I'm trying to look at my laptop screen and I can barely see it, but there's our pin sticking through right there. The other thing we have to remember to do, obviously, since we've adjusted all this and we put our pin back in and we put our stem back in, we have to remember to tighten that screw, don't we? So let's snug that screw back up again so that our stem doesn't loosen up. There we go. Now this is mounted properly. We got the right amount of return tension. Now we could always adjust this further as far as the swing by loosening that top screw again. If we loosen that top screw, then it's going to allow us to pivot that up or down to get the desired result that we want. See how that pivots like that? It's going to lower that resting place for that spring a little bit more. But we're going to leave it pretty much right about there. Again, if you're working with a more delicate thread, you could loosen it. You push it up so that it's not traveling quite as far. Or you can lower it back down and allow that to travel the full length. Go and tighten that back up again. So I think we've got a good base right now, good base of operation with this. Next thing we have to do is get our mounting plate here, get this back into position. We'll go ahead and tidy that up a little bit. And and then we'll go ahead and put this on and then we'll build everything on top of it, right? Build everything on top after that. So I'll go ahead and, again, if you decide you want to clean something like this up, it does have a chrome surface to it right there. You decide you want to clean this up and you use a Dremel tool, just use it very lightly. Otherwise, you're going to damage the chrome finish on there. And what I usually do to lower the friction factor is I put a little bit of oil on the areas that are chromed just to make sure I don't go too far and damage that chrome surface, okay? Real light touch. And because this is an area that shows up, it's visible from the outside of the machine, and you want it to look pretty too. What I do is I usually will scuff it up a little bit with the steel wool after I use the Dremel, and that way it kind of evens out the shine a little bit. I'm going to do that off to the side so I don't contaminate our faceplate that we're assembling. Just kind of scuff it up a little bit with the steel wool. Do the same thing to the mounting surface as well. And this has a little tab on the back of the plate, so just be careful. Again, not too much pressure. You don't want to bend it. Matter of fact, I'm going to move now to my hand Dremel piece. Just kind of just tidy it up a little bit. I'd go a lot more thorough and a lot deeper if I were doing this for a customer. We're just doing it for demonstration purposes. Get all that dirt and chrome off of there. And again, if you want to go over it one last time with a little bit of rubbing alcohol and sewing machine oil mixed. I already have the rubbing alcohol in there. I'm just going to put a couple drops of sewing machine oil. That way we can remove any deposits that are left behind and be confident that that piece is clean when we reassemble it. And again, because you got the sewing machine oil on there, you can go over this chrome piece as well and not be fearful of damaging that chrome surface. There we go. Just kind of get through there quickly. Now we're going to put it back. It just rests on the faceplate and everything else kind of holds it into place. We're going to slide it on with our little chrome part to the left, like you can see it there. And then this little tab here needs to go into, see if you can see that on camera. That little tab thing kind of goes into that base piece and kind of settles in there. Okay. And this becomes our platform to mount everything else to. Okay, so I'm going to put it like that. The next thing we're going to put on is the upper tension discs. Upper tension discs go next. And I usually do use my Dremel to clean those. And I've shown you this before, but whenever you're using a Dremel brush, make sure periodically that you're cleaning that brush itself. That brush is going to hold a lot of the dirt that is cleaned off of the pieces that you're wanting to. Right now, you can see this is really nice and clean, right? Nice and clean and kind of a yellowish. If I go over it with my brush, whoops, that happens once in a while. I didn't have that tight enough and the brush grabbed it. Let me untangle it. That's one of the reasons we don't clean springs like that, is that brush can grab stuff very quickly. Let me get a tighter grip on it this time with my finger. There we go. All right. Well, you can see not a lot, not as bad as sometimes, but you can see all that dirt we just took off of that brush. So we're not reintroducing that dirt again to the pieces that we're trying to clean. We want to keep those as clean as possible. Okay, let me work on these discs. We'll add those next, the tension discs. Hold on one second. I'm going to loosen this real quick. Sometimes if you don't push these brushes far enough down, they get like a wobble and then they make all kinds of awful noises. Let me see if I can loosen that real quick and push that brush just a little bit further down. This Dremel has also gotten years and years of work, so I'm thinking it's probably going to have to replace it soon. There we go. I just lowered it down probably a good 6 millimeters. So much lower profile it is now. So if you ever have that happen, just get your brush a little bit lower down and it'll hopefully not wobble as much. We want these discs to be nice and clean, so we're going to go ahead and set that disc there just for a moment. I'll clean the second one, and then we'll swab over both of them with a little bit of rubbing alcohol, no oil on it in that instance, because we don't want to reintroduce oil to these discs. We want them to be squeaky clean, okay? You notice as well that I'm also doing the edges. I'm also doing the edges of the disc as well. All right, so we're going to swab over these now with just pure rubbing alcohol, no oil whatsoever. Swab over these just lightly with that. Get any deposits off of there that might still be there. That's a fun sound. Can you hear that? The dogs are going to think it's a squeaky toy. They're usually out by Susie with her laptop, and they're going to go, "Where's the squeaky toy? Where's the squeaky toy?" But you can see we swabbed over it after we used that Dremel. Look at all the junk we got off of there. You see that? We don't want to leave any of that behind. Now we're going to put our first upper tension disc straight down. Just drop her in there. Do the same thing to the second one, and we're going to be facing them like this towards each other. Okay. There's that fun sound again. Squeaky clean. You see that swab as well. All that dirt that would otherwise be on there that would be inhibiting the free movement of the thread in the sewing process. We've got to get all of that off of there. So this one, when we put it on, we'll be putting them on so they're facing each other, okay? So it's like this, drop it in this way. There we go. Now the next piece we're going to put on has our centering point, our plus and minus. And this is a painted surface, but I usually will swab over it lightly with a little bit of rubbing alcohol. It'll strip the grease off very nicely. You could also use, if you wanted to, you could use a Windex type product with a little bit of ammonia in it, and it will strip that off very nicely as well. I'll grab a clean Q-tip swab. And because it's a painted surface, you might be wondering, could we add a drop of oil? Will it hurt it in any way? Not at all. And it will lower that that caustic factor so that it doesn't potentially fade or discolor the painted surface on it. Because that is a black enamel paint on there. We'll just kind of go over this a little bit, kind of clean it up. All the way around. And periodically on certain sewing machines, if they're a little bit less tolerant of how that pin is going to release that tension. Remember that little pin that we just put in here? Sometimes if that pin is not positioned right, or that upper tension is just not manufactured as well as it could be, you may have to adjust. See that little center point right there? When you put this on, you may have to, if you're not getting a full release of the tension when you push that pressure foot lever up and you don't want to adjust the pressure foot lever, you can lightly take a screwdriver and just gently tap this in downward, and it'll make contact with that pin release earlier, and it will give you a little bit more tolerance to release that tension without having trying to adjust the pressure foot lever position. That's a little bit more of a complex operation. It's an easy adjustment. Just don't tap it too hard because it's a thin gauge metal, but tapping it in will make contact with that pin earlier, and then it will release that tension and more evenly when you raise that pressure foot lever. I hope if the opposite is true, where when you lower that presser foot lever, you're like, well, my thread is pulling easy, almost like that pin is still pushing against this, then you can do the opposite. You can turn it over this way and just gently tap that little flange of metal there, just gently tap it in, probably about less than a half a millimeter, and then it will allow that tension to fully engage when that presser foot is down. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. This is a little kind of a hack method of getting that presser foot lever to work in concert with that pin to either release the tension so you can sew, or to engage, switch that, reverse that. To when it's pushing out, it's going to release the tension so you can pull the thread. When you lower that presser foot, it's going to engage those discs fully to press against that threads in the sewing process. It allows you to make a little fine adjustment without having to tear apart the presser foot lever. I hope that makes sense. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so we cleaned that up. Look at all the junk we got off of that. Okay, so I'm going to slide that into position now. And on the class 15, there is a way to release this screw to get this right on top. We could probably even do that now just so you can see how it can be done. We're going to release that screw again that we released so we could remove that stem in the spring. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust it just slightly so that we can get that tension right in the center. See that? We get that right in the center so you can see it more visibly as you're adjusting your upper tension. Okay, so I'm going to hold that in place as best as I can. I'm going to tighten that screw one more time. And then you can see you can get that nice and centered on there so that it's going to be where you can see it more readily. Otherwise, it's going to be way to the back or maybe way to the front. Okay? Okay, good. Now, our next part that we're going to put on is going to be our spring. We're going to go ahead and swab our spring as well. And I've shown you in other live streams, over time, these springs get compressed. They get shorter and shorter and shorter, kind of like us as human beings. As we get older, we get shorter. And the way you want to extend that back up, if that's an issue, is you take a screwdriver on either side of it. I can show that to you real quick. Let me rotate my laptop screen a little bit. There we go. Move that back in the middle. What you can do is very carefully, you slide a screwdriver in the lower threshold of the spring, and then slide a screwdriver on the opposite side, and using your thumb on top, see how my thumb is on top? You can elongate that spring just slightly, and you rotate it as you do it so that it's even. And I'm not putting a huge amount of force on there, just a little bit of pressure to stretch that spring back out again so that you're getting the full benefit, so you don't have to turn your upper tension up to 8 or 9 in order to get the desired result. Now we need to just swab over this with a little bit of alcohol, rubbing alcohol, to get it clean. Swab the inside. Again, I wouldn't use a Dremel on this, not only because you could damage the spring, but because you could lose the spring. If that Dremel all of a sudden grabs this in a way like it did that towel when I was cleaning the towel, your spring is going to launch into orbit and end somewhere in New Jersey, probably end in New Jersey. So I would just clean it with a little bit of rubbing alcohol and a Q-tip swab, get that nice and tidied up. And you can tell which way the spring is going to work by grabbing it like this and then like this and twisting it. So I'm twisting that. You can see the normal direction that spring is going to coil. It's clockwise. And the way you get it clockwise is having it look like an E. See the E shape? Don't put it like this, because then you're going to be going against the coil as you increase the tension, turning it clockwise. You want to have the E facing and then it'll go naturally against the coil of the spring. So when we put it back on, we're going to have it with an E shape facing up, like that. Next thing we have to put on is our little piece here that goes in and ends up, as you're tightening it, it ends up popping through one of these little holes and locking that tension in place. See how that little pin is sticking through? Hopefully you can see that. So we're going to clean this piece next. And when we put it on, we're going to have the pin facing towards us, the little pin point here. Okay. I think I'll clean this with my little Dremel tool. Just kind of go over it a little bit. It's not a moving part, but we still want to get the dirt off of it. And again, imagine that I just swabbed over it as well with a Q-tip swab and rubbing alcohol, because that's what I would recommend you do. And then we're going to slide it onto this stem like this with that point facing us. You see that? Yeah. Okay. Next piece we're going to put on is going to be our numbered piece right here, which is also going to be metal, but it's a lacquered metal. So we're going to use a combination of rubbing alcohol and a little bit of sewing machine oil so we can strip off the oil on both sides, but we don't want to damage the numbers or the lettering. So we're going to lower that caustic factor of the rubbing alcohol and get it clean at the same time. Yeah. So I just put a little bit of rubbing alcohol on there. Now I'm going to put a little bit of our oil on there on the end. We'll take our piece and we'll swab it over the lettered numbers first. Get that nice and clean. You can see that someone before probably used straight rubbing alcohol or something else caustic, and they took a little bit of the paint off right there, didn't they? That's why we always have to take into account the chemicals that we're introducing to our sewing machines can have a major impact in a positive way or in a negative way. You can see how much easier those numbers are to read now. We've got that outside nice and clean. We didn't damage any of the embossed numbers or anything like that on there. It's quite lovely. And look at all the dirt we got off just with little effort. Now we'll clean the inside with the other side. Did I dampen that? Yeah, I did dampen that side as well. Get that cleaned off as well. We don't leave any dirt behind because we don't want it to go up against all those pieces that we just cleaned, right? Yeah. And now we're going to take our little piece like this, and when you put it on, this little pin thing is also going to serve as our center point. So when we put this numbered plate on, we have to make sure that the 0 is to the right of this little pin. So we've got a 0 point. So when I slide this on, I'm going to look for that little pin, and then I'm going to push down just slightly on it. Do it with this hand. And I'll make sure that it's stopping. So what I'm doing is I'm pushing. There's a little catch point on the back of here. I don't know if you can see that in the camera or not. It's going to be hard to see. Where's my flashlight? Hold on a second. I don't know if this will help or make it worse. But right on the inside, there's just a little point right there at the top, the 12 o'clock position, that's going to meet up with that little point to stop it from turning past true center. Okay? Maybe you can see it that way. But the point is, when you put it on, make sure that you put it on so that that 0 is going to be to the right of this little pin thing that we just slid on, this little thing that's sticking out. Push that down a little bit and just check again. There we go. And once I get it to that point where I can feel that it is touching that, I'm going to hold it like this. And we have our last piece that we're going to put on. And I'm actually going to put this on, and then I'm going to clean it afterwards just to hold it in place. And it doesn't hurt to put a little bit of oil on here, but be real sparing about it if you do. So I'm holding that down. Put our piece back on, starting to screw it on. And now what I need to decide, I've got it on the center point, but how much pre-tension do I want? Depending on how many times I turn this while I'm holding this down will determine how much pre-tension there is, so I don't have to turn up my upper tension as far. So I'm going to give it one more little turn. right about there. And I'm going to release this little piece here and wait for that pin to kick back in. Maybe I didn't go quite far enough. Let me go a little bit further down. Make sure our center point is back there again. Push it down a little bit further. Okay, now I'm going to release it. We might hear a little click as that pin locks into place. She was kind of a silent lock, but... And then you want to check your range to see that you can get all the way up to 9. We're back at 0 again. That's as far as it'll go because we have it centered on here. And that little pin is holding this disc from turning further. Now we want to make sure we can go full range. Yeah. If we get to a point and we can only turn it to, say, right there, between 7 and 8, the fix for that is we have to loosen this up again. We push that little plate down, and then we're going to turn it just a little bit counterclockwise so that we release some of that pretension a little bit. Release it again. And then we can get, there was that click. There's that click. And we can get all the way up to 9. But you want to check that because if you put too much pretension, you're not going to be able to get all the way up to 9 on your upper tension. Spring is good on return. You can see our little pin back here for releasing tension that presser foot lever will push on in the sewing process. It releases, it's kind of hard against my finger. Let me do it like this. Actually, a flat surface would be better. This little pin gets pushed in. Yeah. And it pushes those discs out. Probably see it easier if I don't have as much pressure on there. Probably, there we go. So we know it. We have it properly assembled. And now what I would do is I would swab all that oil off of here. I would get all the rest of this oil off. But that, in essence, is how you can tear down your upper tension for a Class 15-91 and a number of other Class 15s, including some of the Japanese models, copied this same design. So you can apply that principle to have the cleanest upper tension possible, which will give you the best stitch quality possible. Okay? Yeah, there you go. I hope that's helpful. Now I'm going to get my vacuum and clean all this up. I'll put on a little bit of music while I'm cleaning up my stuff here. All right, so if you found that helpful, go ahead and type a comment, maybe in the live chat, and that way I know that that information was helpful to you. Okay. All right. Oh, good gravy. I'm back to that stuff again. All right. I finally found something. Hold on. All right, let me pause that. I also want to show you a couple other things real quick before we move on. There we go. This is the needle that we're going to be sewing with today. It's obviously going to be a Schmetz needle. It is a size 100, which equates to a size 16. And being a leather needle, as we go through a field of different materials, it'll be interesting to see how this leather needle reacts to those different materials. We're going to be sewing canvas. We're going to be sewing, I don't know if I cut any denim or not, but we cut also a wide field of leathers as well. But this is a fabulous needle. It's not the biggest leather needle that you could use in this machine. We could go with a size 110, which equates to a size 18. You might remember our friend, if you've been with us a long time, Sunny, who passed away. She lived out in Pennsylvania. She used to call these harpoon needles. So on Steven's machine today, we're going to be using a harpoon needle, not the biggest harpoon needle, but a size 116. It's a pretty big needle. And these leather needles do an excellent job, just slicing through that leather because of the point that's on them. With our bobbin that we're going to be setting up and our bobbin case, if you're setting this particular machine up, I'll just show you real quick using this odd style class 15 bobbin. This is also class 15 as well. We're going to be sliding it in with the thread coming over the top like this. Slide it in there. And then we're going to be drawing it all the way to the front so it goes underneath that tension strip. So we got it like this. See that? And that means that when we're sewing, this is going to be turning clockwise. So that's how you set up your bobbin. And there's maintenance to do on bobbins as well. I've shown that to you several times. Take a Q-tip swab, a little bit of rubbing alcohol with the bobbin out, clean the inside, and then you'll put a little bit of oil on the release so that this moves freely when you're taking the bobbin case in and out. It's a very delicate little spring, and if we keep it lubricated, it's less likely to break. So you put just a little bit of oil right there on the hinge point on the front. You can also hit it from the back as well because that hinge is going to be on the back of the inside of the bobbin also. But keeping these running well is going to make a big difference. And you'll notice that this particular bobbin that the class 15-91 takes is going to have that finger pointing at right around the 1 o'clock position. There are other bobbin cases that are for class 15s where this little finger is going to be pointing at the 11 o'clock position. So if you buy a machine and it doesn't have a bobbin case, you want to look inside of that raceway where the hook system is and see where that opening is that this will slide into. If it's over here, you need a bobbin case that has this finger pointing the opposite way towards the 11 o'clock position. If when you looks like when you could slide it in, it's going to be pointing at the 1 o'clock position, then this is the type of bobbin case that you need. Okay? So just remember that there's one that has the 1 o'clock and one that has the 11 o'clock position. If we were to take this off and just move it pointing the other way, that's how that other bobbin case would look. Okay? So I'm going to set this up again, thread over the top, put it in, slide it down that track underneath the tension band. Here, click into place, and then we're ready to go. This is your adjusting screw right here. If you turn it clockwise, because your top stitching, let's say your top stitching is a little bit loose looking, you'll turn this in really small increments clockwise. I would say less than a millimeter, and then run a sew off, see what impact it brings. You just don't want to go crazy and crank it too far, because then what you're going to do is you're going to steal that lock stitch definition from the upper tension. This fights against this. These are yeah, they're kind of like friends, but not really. As you're looking at these two components right here, this one is pulling down to define the top stitch. This one is pulling up to define the lock stitch, and they're in a constant back and forth. So you have to get that sweet spot where you've got this adjusted, at a reasonable place, and you have this one adjusted so that they cooperate and they give you a beautiful top stitch, this guy right here, and this gives you a beautiful lock stitch. Okay? Yeah. All right, let me move these out of the way. Oh, one thing real quick about the bobbins. I talked about the bobbins put out by Walmart, the Hello, what is it? Hello, I would say Hello Kitty. Hello Hobby bobbins are really, really nicely designed so that they fit on the mounting stem and they also fit in the bobbin case appropriately. If I take this bobbin out, we grab one of these. Oh, on this side. Grab one of these on this side. You see it's going to fit in there very, very nicely. It's not going to be too high. It's not going to be too low. Also, if we go over to the machine, it's going to fit on there very nicely. And there's a little pin on this mounting point right here that it will fit into so that it locks in place. There it goes. See that? So it locks in place properly. And if you ever come across where you've got let's say you have a 201 and something goes wrong with your motor, this whole assembly is one assembly, the motor, the bobbin winder, and all of that. You can't swap between a 201 and a 1591 because the mounting point on this mounting stem is going to be different for the 201-2. The 201-2 is going to run with a class 66 bobbin, and it's going to mount differently on here than a class 15. The motor and everything else will work nicely, but when you go to try to wind a bobbin, if you were to take an assembly off of a 201-2 and put it on this 1591, everything works great until you try to wind a bobbin. And then that class 15 bobbin will not mount on there properly. So just remember, this part of it right here is different between the big brother of this machine, the 201-2, and the 1591. So if you ever have to replace this, make sure that it's a mounting stem that goes with the 1591, not the 201-2. I hope that makes sense. It's just a matter of functionality. Now, real quick, I'll show you another one. I marked it here. These look virtually identical, don't they? This is the Hello Hobby one that we just took out of this box. Wait a second. There we go. This is the Hello Hobby one that we just took out of the box. It fits in the bobbin case nicely. It fits on the machine nicely so that you can wind it. This one is a Chinese-made aftermarket class 15 bobbin, not made by the Hello Hobby people through Walmart. And this one has an issue. It fits okay in the bobbin case, but when we try to put it on the machine, because they didn't manufacture this center point right here to the specifications of a class 1591 machine, we can't get it on the machine. It won't go on. I'll show you what I mean. Okay, this side's okay. This side goes on. It won't fit. It won't go on. So they engineered this side of it to a specification that it will fit on this mounting point. The other side, and you should be able to do these universally, this side won't go on because they made the hole too small. See that? So just be wary of aftermarket bobbins, just because they don't always get the specs right. The Walmart people that make these Hello Hobby bobbins did an excellent job on theirs. This aftermarket one that was made in China, they missed the mark on half of the side. And that's a problem because depending on which way you wind the bobbin, when you do that thread over the top, like I showed you, to put it into the bobbin case, the thread has to be over the top. You might try to slide it over this stem and it won't go in because it wasn't engineered right It was made too small. So yeah, just be watchful of that. It can be a problem. Okay. Got to give my voice a little break here. A little bit more music, and then we're going to jump into this machine finally. And I'll show you how to do a little bit of DIY to clean up the paint. And then we're going to actually sew with this machine. All right, let me go ahead and move the camera. So these are the sew-offs I have prepared. I'll just show you real quick. I've got canvas. See if I can set these down. I've got canvas. I haven't sewn this in a long time to show you, but look at the thickness of that. This is going to be, there we go. Canvas, we're going to be doing 6 layers of that. This is an indoor-outdoor type carpeting. You can use it on workbench surfaces like I have it right here. It's real thick stuff. It's going to be made out of just a bunch of nasty materials that needles don't like. And we're going to be stitching through this as well in the sewing process. We got genuine cowhide. We're going to be going through 2 layers of that. We got a white Italian style leather. We're going to be sewing through that. Protected full grain leather, 2 layers of that. We're going to be going through those. Then we've got this hardened leather, which is used in a lot of equestrian type operations. It's real stiff leather. We're going through 2 layers of that as well. And then we've got this leather as well. It's another type of genuine cowhide, and we'll be going through that. We've got the alligator type material that's got a backing on it. Is that alligator or snake skin? I think it's snake skin, actually. And then we've got this Italian leather that we'll be doing our final sew off in a circle. So this is going to be our sewing process, at least as it's planned right now during this live stream. Okay. Well, let's do a little bit of DIY real quick, and I'll show you that first. I've got to get our camera set up on the other side. I'm just going to drop those. Let's get it set up on the other side. You can see some of that caramelized oil that we're going to be going after. Stuff right here. It just kind of it detracts from of the machine. And I'm not going to show you the car wax that we would put on after it to protect that clear coat. But we're going to be just stripping off some of this. I want to show you how easy it is to get it off. Easy from a standpoint of getting those layers, but there's probably about 12 layers of caramelized oil that's built up since 1949 on this surface. And we've got to just work through it very slowly because we don't want to go too fast and too quick. Otherwise, we're going to strip off that clear coat, and then we have bare paint, and we're in a world of trouble. So I'm going to grab our rubbing alcohol first and our sewing machine oil. Sewing machine oil right there. And our rubbing alcohol right here. So we're going to be taking a Q-tip ball like this, and we're going to be putting about 6 drops of rubbing alcohol on this cotton ball. Did I call it a Q-tip ball? I guess I'm making new words now. So around 6 to 8 drops will work. There's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'll make it a little bit heavier so we can impact it a little bit quicker. And then we're going to be putting an equal number of sewing machine oil drops on there. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then what we're going to be doing is we're going to be moving in one direction on the painted surface. I'm going to remove our little felt here so we don't get that all nasty. We're moving in one direction. It can be left or it can be right, but we're only going to be going in one direction at a time. Just keep working over it like that. Now we're going to go the other way. And I'm applying a medium amount of pressure, not a huge amount of pressure. See how that stuff starts to come off? That's all caramelized oil that's on there. Got more back over here. I can go over that as well. And what I'm trying to say is don't go back and forth like this. It's tempting to do that. But go one direction and change directions. You can certainly go to the back as well, like that. And it's a tedious process. It doesn't give you results right away. So if you're a very impatient person, drink less coffee the day that you do this. We got more up here on the arm as well. You can kind of see that from the side. Right up here. And just like cleaning off the Dremel brush, as it gets dirty, throw it away. Get another one. It takes a little bit more time, but that way you're not reintroducing that stuff to the painted surface again. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Just kind of swab over that as well. And again, we're not going to get all of it off in this demonstration. We're just trying to tidy it up a little bit. And slowly but surely, it is a process of patience. Slowly but surely, you start to get those layers pulled down and you start to see the beauty and the luster of that machine start to be returned, and you get all of this stuff off in the process. So that really is, I mean, it's a pretty simple thing that I just tried to demonstrate to you. It's just a matter of being patient as you're working through it, because you don't want to go too many layers down. Otherwise, even though you've diluted that rubbing alcohol, it'll start to potentially eat into that clear coat a little bit. So you just want to make sure that you balance the two. If you already have a clear coat that is compromised, you can see that if there's crackling on it, then you would change the ratio from an even balance to a little bit heavier on the sewing machine oil. So instead of an 8 and 8, you would do maybe a 10 and an 8 or a 10 and a 6. And that way it's going to be even softer and more gentle in stripping that caramelized oil off of that surface that has damage already to the clear coat. But never use stuff like Windex or other, cleaning type products on your surface. It's going to be too aggressive, and it's going to bring damage to that surface very quickly. Okay. Yeah, makes a difference. And it starts to bring back that beauty to that machine again. And we didn't spend much time doing it, but you can see already that the machine is beginning to slowly get that beauty and that luster back again. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's do something outrageous now, since we've been running about 2 hours. Let's actually sew with this machine, okay? Let's actually sew with this machine. All right, move that back a little bit. Pull my spool pin back on there. And you can see we have the same tensioner right here that we just serviced. Same assembly. And you can see I have this one calibrated a little bit higher so that we've got a really nice balance on the sew-offs. And we only have this turned up to a little bit over 4. just a little bit over 4. And that way, if Stephen decides to sew something much heavier, much thicker than we're doing, which I doubt, but if he does, he can have enough adjustment to maintain that lock stitch with the upper tension. It still has a lot of range. We're only up to right around a little bit over 4. We can go all the way up to 9, and it gives you a lot more flexibility in being able to manage that tension factor as you go through different materials, right? Yeah. Better get I think that's my microphone there. Move that out of the way. I think I'll move my microphone back up in my little stand so that I don't knock it off the workbench again. There we go. And I do have an LED light in here as well. It's going to brighten up that sewing space a lot. But for our purposes of sewing with the camera, filming things, I'm going to shut it off because I think we'll be able to see things a little bit easier. So I think that I haven't sewn on this for a really long time is this indoor-outdoor material. It's incredible. As you can see, the thickness of it, it's ridiculously thick. And it's got a dense backing on it to give it a little bit of stability. We're going to see if we can get through this material first. And then we'll jump into some of the other materials that we have to sew as well. And again, as you're going through different materials, you've got to look at your presser foot factor right up here. I've got it down pretty far because I was going through some real thick leather off camera. But you can always turn it counterclockwise if you're going to go to those lighter materials, those silks and satins. And that way you're not going to create a lot of puckering on there as well. You can see the difference in what I'll just show you our little DIY on the paint surface. Here's our area that we went over right here. Here's our area that we went over right here. It's not perfect yet, but look at our light that we didn't touch yet with that caramelization on it still. So after the live stream, I'll clean this up a little bit more. So when it goes out to New Mexico, and now that Stephen will have seen this, he can do a little extra cleaning on it as well to get even further. Okay. All right, get my take-up arm all the way up. There we go. Up, 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 up. And now I got to pull out my presser foot. Not my presser foot, my foot controller, rather. Pull out my foot controller. I had my foot controller kind of underneath the workbench. There we go. All right, let's see how this 1591, and does anyone know, I didn't ask this question. I did not ask this question, but does anyone know what size motor? I talked about this being a potted motor. There's our potted motor. Hold on one second. My camera cable is caught. I talked about this being a potted motor right back here. What size potted motor does the 1591 come with? And I'll tell you this, that it comes with 2 different size motors. It comes with 2 different size motors. So it's a little bit of a shot in the dark as to which one this machine has, but I'll tell you that it's got one or the other. So if anyone knows the size motor that the class 1591 comes, that potted motor, and the same thing is true of the motor on the 201-2. The 201-2 and the 1591 are both going to have one or the other potted motor as far as amperage. So if anyone knows the amperage or wants to guess, and 1 amp is going to be a little bit too high, Susie. It's going to be less than 1 amp. It's going to be less than 1 amp. Less than 1 amp. I'm going to do this sew off while you're guessing. And we'll buzz down this indoor-outdoor carpeting. Now, you saw the thickness. Watch how easy this 1591 that's been fully restored in the workshop gets the job done. All right, here we go. I didn't do so good of a job of steering it, but I did better at sewing it. I know I've got my clippers. Here's my clippers. Okay. So a lot of people would probably blink twice and say, why are you sewing outdoor type carpeting? Why are you sewing indoor-outdoor carpeting? Because it's a very dense material. And I want you to demonstrate in this live stream how powerful this 1591 is for heavy duty sewing. And the same thing is true of the 201-2 with that potted motor. And certainly there's other flavors of that I read off in that class 15 summary, along with the original Singer 101 that had a very, very interesting potted motor on it also. Well, let's take a look at these as a start. This is our first sew off. Take my glasses off so I can see the screen. Indoor outdoor carpeting, beautiful, beautiful stitching. There's our top stitching. The machine made it look so easy, you just have no idea the density of this material to get through it like that so easily. There's our lock stitching on the back, equally beautiful. So our upper tension that we cleaned, just like we did in the DIY, is doing an excellent job, even set just a little bit above 4. It's executing a beautiful, beautiful lock stitch as well. Look at it like that too. Probably easier to see it that way. Kind of hides in there, doesn't it? This material, you can see the density of it. It kind of tucks away and hides the stitches. Got to pull it back and then look at those stitches that way. So now if you've never seen somebody sew indoor outdoor type carpeting or this material, now you've seen it. So I'm going to set that to the side. Let's jump into another sew off. What can I do next? Let's see. Maybe I'll do this cowhide stuff. This is a genuine cowhide. Nice nap on the back as well. We'll go through 2 layers of this. See if we can buzz through that. So it looks like the next guess that Jenny threw out was 0.7 amps. Believe it or not, when you see, I'm going to do this sew off first, and then I'll tell you what size motor this machine has, and it will emphasize the point that because of that direct drive factor with that potted motor, it does not have a belt. It never needs a belt because the teeth from the motor go directly into the teeth on the balance wheel. Absolutely no slippage. So all of that power goes directly down to that needle with the machine being optimized, and you don't lose any energy in the process. And that's how we're going to be able to go through these. This is like thicker than a belt. We're going to be doing this one next, these 2 layers. And when I tell you what size the motor is, you're not going to believe me. You're not going to believe me, but it's true. All right. I'm going to use those little clips too, so I can try to keep this reasonably straight. So we put a clip there and a clip here. All right, so let's do these 2 layers of genuine cowhide. It's probably going to be about close to 8 ounces of thickness. 8 ounces of thickness. I'm going to get my take-up arm all the way up. There we go. About 8 ounces of leather, and let's see how Stephen's machine does on this one. Get that over there. All right, I'm going to try to sew straight. I kind of went straight, but not really. And I didn't do such a great job of getting my size 12 shoes on that leather, but at least we got through it, right? At least we got through it. And you'll notice that with a material like this that is so thick, and we've got 2 layers of it, and we only have a standard presser foot attachment, you might, depending on how fast I'm sewing, you might get a little bit of an inconsistency in the stitch length. And that's because the material will slide just a little bit and slip a little bit going over those feed dogs, even with our presser foot pressure turned up. And that's why if you're going to be sewing a bunch of leather like this, you'd want to go either to a walking foot or a roller foot. A walking or a roller foot is going to press down more evenly and with a little bit more distribution of that, and it's going to keep that stitch quality stable. Where I started to speed up a little bit, you'll see that we lost that stitch integrity as far as the length. It started to get a little bit stubby, and that's a product of how I was operating, not a product of the machine. All right, so let's start over here. We'll look at the stitching over there. Very, very nice stitching. And it looks like with these 2 layers of this type of cowhide, we maybe would have to adjust our upper tension down even a little bit further because it's barely noticeable, but there's a slight little bit of a tilt on the top stitch. And that means that bobbin case is not able to pull down hard enough in relation to the upper tension. And so it creates a little bit of a tilt. As we increase that pull down from below, it will straighten that stitch out just perfectly. And again, it's barely noticeable, but I notice it, and I'm always trying to improve things. So you can see we started out really good, really even, and then I sped up a little bit too much, and watch what happens. Because those feed dogs were not able to bite in quite hard enough, then right near the end, we got a stubbiness, didn't we? Kind of a stubbiness there, and then I slowed down, and then it returned back to an even flow again. But that's an issue of speed. That's an issue of the speed that I was sewing. I was doing pretty good through there, and then I went a little bit too fast. It kind of stubbed up, and then I slowed it down, and we got back again. So just monitor your speed. I was talking about that with that other sewing machine the other time when we were doing remember the tri-motion on those genomes that we just did for the senior center. I was saying when you're dealing with a machine that's managing needle movement and also tri-motion, you've got to regulate your speed. Speed will affect your sewing outcome depending on what you're sewing on and depending on what kind of stitch is being delivered. But apart from my failure to monitor and manage that speed evenly, the machine did an excellent job with delivering a great stitch. And again, that's what we just sewed through right there. How about our lock stitching? Let's look at our lock stitching on the back. Very, very nice. Notice there's no tilt. There's no tilt on that stitching on the lock stitching because that upper tension was pulling a little bit harder than it should have against that bobbin case. Come on, camera. Come on. Let's try it like that. Maybe it wants to look at it like that. There we go. So a beautiful, beautiful lock stitch. And the lock stitch is always going to be a little bit harder to execute near perfection to because that needle has to sweep down and then it has to pull that thread back up through all of this leather. So we got a beautiful lock stitch. We got a really nice looking top stitch, apart from me sewing too fast at the end where the feed dogs were not able to keep up. They weren't able to maintain that traction in moving that material evenly over the feed dogs and underneath that presser foot. And but apart from that, some really good looking stitching through a lot of leather. Okay, let me set that to the side as well. And one quick little tip for you, again, as we look at this standard presser foot attachment, we can get dirt that builds up on the machine in different places, like right up here where we went over it. This we didn't go over yet. Yuck. This we went over, and we were able to break down a lot of that caramelization on here as well on the bed. We've got that looking much nicer. Some of that oil, that old oil, can also stick to your needle plate and can get on the bottom of your presser foot. So as you're sewing, if you don't want to go through the labor, of taking your presser foot off, you could always grab a Q-tip with just a real light layer of rubbing alcohol, real light because it's going to be up against that chrome surface as well. And you can take that Q-tip, make sure your needle is at the highest position, hold your thread in place, and you can just very gently swab underneath your presser foot to make sure that it's getting maximum traction. Make sure it's getting maximum traction. And then take the other side that doesn't have any rubbing alcohol, and you can dry it off. Yeah. And it may not even show up real, it may not even be real yellow, but at the same time, there is a little bit of an oil residue, because when you oil your machine and you take your faceplate off, there's one screw that holds this faceplate on the 1591. When you take this screw out, the whole faceplate comes off just like this. And when you take that off and you oil the different pivot points inside of the faceplate, inevitably that oil will run down that needle shaft and down that presser foot, and it will work its way onto the needle and work its way onto the presser foot attachment, and then it'll work its way onto the bottom of that. So periodically just swabbing over the bottom a little bit will give you the best traction that you can possibly get with that particular presser foot attachment, okay? All right, let's go through another sew off now. I think we'll go through some of this canvas material. And again, we're going to be sewing a canvas material using a leather needle. Remember, we're using a leather needle. So I'm going to go ahead and give this a fold. We're at 2 layers starting, up to 4 layers, and now up to 6 layers of this heavy grade canvas. You can see it from the side as well. So we're going to see if we can go through this with this leather needle by Schmetz and see how we do as far as managing stitch control and stitch length. I'll see if I can slow us down a little bit more so that we don't slip. And then we should get a much better result. Give ourselves a little bit of an edge. We'll kind of pinch this together right there. Pinch that together. Okay, so 6 layers of heavy grade canvas. And I'll try to really regulate my speed this time so that we don't distort those stitches. Okay, here we go. I kind of throttled it up and down there a little bit, but that's what happens when you have big feet, right? You have big feet. I did better on the canvas than I did on that other leather, but canvas is not going to be quite as slippery as that leather is. So we don't have to fight it quite as much. Well, I don't know if you've sewn canvas before. It is a woven type material that is incredibly difficult to get through. It's got a real high piercing threshold. And even with a sharp leather needle, going through this much canvas, if you see it from the side, is definitely not an easy task. But look at the stitching. I did a better job of regulating my speed this time, and the result is evident by the quality of that top stitching, the consistency, the spacing, the integrity of the stitch. So speed is a big factor in sewing, isn't it? It can really kind of goof you up a little bit if you don't regulate the speed, depending on what you're sewing on, the type of needle you're using, the type of material you're sewing on, all of that factors in. Some beautiful, beautiful page 34 stitching there on this canvas. We'll turn it over, look at the lock stitching. Yeah, real nice looking lock stitching as well. No tilting the stitches. So on this material, we did a real good job with the tension is regulated nicely, even for a sew off of this difficulty.
Beautiful, beautiful stitching. And again, 6 layers of denim, or 6 layers of denim, 6 layers of canvas. 6 layers of canvas. I better drink more coffee or less. 6 layers of canvas, and just a beautiful result. You can see it from that end as well. Yeah, let's move on to our next. Let's move on to our next sew-off victim. We've done leather so far. We've done this indoor, outdoor carpeting type material. And now we've done 6 layers of heavy grade canvas. Let's move on to something else. I think I've got a lot of leather to do as well, but I think I'm going to move on to this, this alligator type material. It's only the topping, but I'm going to make it a little bit more difficult for this machine. And I'm going to try to do 3 layers of this. I think the last time we only did 2. Fold it like that. I love the scaly appearance of that. Slide that underneath the presser foot. I'm going to offset it a little bit so I can use those clips, hopefully. Press your foot down. Put our little clips on there to try to keep this gathered together as best as we can. I tried to use Paula Noel's clip the last time, if you were in that live stream. She's from West Palm Beach, Florida, and I broke one of them. The material was just too thick, so hopefully I don't do that again with these. These are a little bit more robust clips to hold that material together. So 3 layers of this material, which is going to be kind of like an alligator snake skin, and we'll see how Stevens 1591 does with this sew-off. I'm going to really try to control that speed as best as I can. Okay? All right, here we go. Really slow, really slow. There we go. I had like half my shoe on the foot controller that time. That's how I was able to slow down. Half my shoe on there. All right, let's take a look at this stitching on this aquatic type, reptile type material. I think I called it in another live stream. I may have been sewing on a different material, but I believe my recollection is this is probably snake skin. It's not alligator. Alligator is going to be a little bit wider in its scaling. But anyway, let's take a look at it nonetheless. This is going to be our top stitching here. Take a look at that first. Very, very nice. Very nice. Those are beautiful stitches. Beautiful stitches. And even and spacing and size and everything else is bang on because I did a better job. I did a better job this time of regulating that speed. Did a much better job of regulating that speed. Very, very nice. Let's turn it over and look at the other side, the lock stitching. See how we did on that. And again, we're sewing a material that probably would be better served by a different type of needle than leather, but the leather needle seems to be doing a good job so far. Very, very nice lock stitching as well. Very even. You see that right there. I'm as pleased as punch. I didn't try this off camera, and I'm delighted with the quality and the caliber of stitching. The lock stitching is just absolutely spot on. The top stitching is spot on as well. And again, 3 layers of this stuff. It's not a super ultra thin sew off. And yet this 1591, again, with that potted motor, and I'm finally going to give you the answer. I kind of made you wait as we sewed off to some more heavy materials. The rating on this potted motor is only, I'm going to type it in the live chat, is only it's only 0.5 amps. So it's only a tenth of an amp bigger motor than what is on the featherweight. A featherweight has a 0.4 amp motor. This has a 0.5 amp motor, but the advantage is that direct drive factor. The direct drive factor, and also, in all honesty, the inside makings of the motor when you go through it are going to have much larger wraps, so it maximizes that field of electricity much better than a small featherweight motor. It's going to have larger stator wraps. It's going to have a more dense stack lamentation in there as well. And just all of that together is going to just give you power that's off the charts for such a small motor by amperage rating. And there is a 0.6 amp motor that they also made for the potted motors. This doesn't have it. It has a 0.5 versus a 0.6. But those are the two options on the potted motors for the 1591 and the 201-2 is either 0.5 or 0.6. Now, the original, I call it the original potted motor by Singer on the Singer 101, and the 101 has different subclasses, actually comes with a larger motor by amperage rating than either of these two. It actually comes with a 0.7 amp motor versus a 0.6 or a 0.5. So significant difference. But it shows you how it's just like the electric cars now. I'm not a Tesla fan. I'm not a Tesla, a poo-poo person either. I don't have feelings one way or the other about Teslas. I know that we've seen some driving around here in Kentucky. So they're down in the South here as well. But those Teslas, because of the way they're engineered with their electrical system and the torque that they generate through those electrical motors, they're able to deliver crazy results as well in acceleration, in torque power for maximum speed. So the engineering and the design that goes into an electric motor, whether it's in a Tesla or whether it's in a 1591 from 1949 like this one, it can just blow you away with what it's able to accomplish. It really can. And it all comes down to the design and engineering. Yeah. Oh, there you go. Tim has a question about page 34 stitching. We'll see if somebody answers that correctly. All right, nobody's answering it, so I'm going to answer it then. So what page 34 stitching means, Tim, is you'll have a lot of people, especially about featherweights. They're always talking about featherweights generating the perfect stitch. I say all the time that there's no such thing as a perfect stitch. A stitch can always be improved. We've done some marvelous stitching today on some very, very difficult materials using this size 100 leather needle by Schmetz. And the stitching has been absolutely drop dead gorgeous in many, many respects, but it hasn't been an absolutely perfect stitch. Like I say, if you change presser foot attachments, like a roller foot, a walking foot, you can make that stitch even more even and even more pronounced. So what page 34 means is a near perfect stitch. It's a near perfect stitch. It's about as close as we can get to holy mackerel, that's perfect. So when we say, when we say page 34, we're saying we just executed a break-worthy stitch that is near perfect. Yeah. The manual says 32 volts direct current. I don't know what that means, Jenny. These potted motors are going to be rated by 110, 125. In other words, depending on the amount of electricity that's flowing through them, their voltage delivery is going to be between 110 to 125. So I'm not sure what it means by 32 volts. Some of the newer models, like this one over here that I showed you before, some of these newer models by Janome are going to have, it's called a micro motor. And the micro motors are going to ramp up almost like a Tesla. They're going to ramp up to delivering adequate power to sew, but they're only going to be running at between 24 to 30 volts. It's going to have a tiny little motor, probably about this big. And that tiny little motor is going to deliver adequate sewing, but it's only going to be running at between 24 to 30 volts when it's delivering that sew off. So I'm not sure what exactly that means, but yeah. But there are, a lot of the more contemporary quilting machines have those little micro motors. They're not going to be, I'll show you. They're not going to be this small. They're not going to be this small. They're probably going to be about 3 times this size. And they're going to be wrapped and engineered in a way that they can deliver adequate torque to drive the machine through most sew-offs, but they're not going to be running at a voltage that's consistent with this 1591 between 110 to 125. A little motor that's in a lot of the Janome machines now is going to be running at about 24 volts. So what they've elected to do is they've elected to design a motor that delivers adequate torque to sew, but it uses considerably less voltage in the sewing process. And when I get some of those machines in, if I get some of those machines in and the customer's talking about, I push on the foot controller and the foot controller doesn't work. It's either the foot controller or the motor. When you're going to test, you've seen me do a bypass on motors before, and I'll connect a direct lead with an alligator clip like this to the red and the blue contacts on the motor, and I'll fire it up. You can't do that on a lot of the contemporary motors that are micro-sized because they're running at a voltage considerably less than what a standard outlet would put into them. If you try to connect alligator clips like this to one of those micro motors, you're going to fry it. And so you might say, well, how do you test one of those micro motors on one of the newer quilting machines if you're trying to eliminate that it's the motor versus the foot controller? You've got to get a device like this. A device like this, let me put my glasses on. A device like this is going to give you a range that you can adjust based on that motor. And if you see, I've got these clipped apart right now. Let me see if I can plug it in real quick. I hope I don't take our camera out. So I've got these alligator clips that are off of this unit right here, separated right now so we don't fry anything or do anything weird. As I turn it on, you can see I can adjust it. Hopefully it's showing up on the camera. I can adjust it as low as 2.9 volts. 2.9 volts to test an electric motor that is not a standard motor that runs off of 110 to 125 like this 1591. And then I can adjust it up depending on the size of the motor. Say, for example, that motor that's in that Janome, that's going to be 24 volts. I can take this all the way up. And the manufacturer recommends that you'd only do about 80%. So if you have an electric motor that's rated at 24 volts, like one of those micro motors that's in the Janomes, you would probably set it at about 20 volts, and then you would connect it as a bypass to that motor to see whether or not the motor is good. Does that make sense? And this will go, I think this will go all the way up to 30 volts, maybe 35 volts. I don't remember. But it's a great way to and it's going to keep reading until I until I unplug it. But it's a great way to test one of those micro motors to determine whether or not it's a motor issue or a foot controller issue. But never ever take one of those micro motors and just connect it with a bypass alligator clip. You'll fry the motor in a heartbeat. Okay. Oh, 0.5 amps. Yeah. Yeah. 0.5 is going to be half of an amp. So I think Susie's guess on the motor size for this 1591 was 1 amp. 0.5 is going to be basically half of an amp. And if you take away 1/10 of it and drop it down to 0.4, then you're going to be sewing with a motor the size of the featherweight. If you increase it accordingly, say 0.5 of an amp from the 0.5, then you're going to be sewing at 1 amp. Yeah, it's a little confusing, and I'm not a math person at all. Susie knows that. Susie's our mathematician in the family, but it's important to know that so that if you are needing to troubleshoot something with one of your machines, and let's say it's one of these newer quilting machines like this one over here, you've got to know how to test it in a safe way so that you don't bring damage to it. It goes back to our Hippocratic oath with machines, just like medical, right? Our Hippocratic oath is do no harm. So if we've got a machine that's already troubled and sick and it comes to us for help, we don't want to make it worse. I won't dwell too much on some of our medical experiences here in the South, but Susie went to one of the local hospitals with certain symptoms and complaints, and they didn't use the right troubleshooting to diagnose what was going on with Susie, and they made it worse. Instead of improving the infection that she had, they gave her C. diff. I won't say which hospital it is. If Susie wants to type that in the live chat, she can. But in the medical field, they've got a Hippocratic oath of doing no harm. And in the sewing circles, we need to maintain that same oath of if we're going to troubleshoot a machine and operate within our wheelhouse, then we've got to have the right equipment, like that special amperage device that I just showed you that will give us the ability to go all the way down to 0.5 volt up to 30 volts, and we can test a motor safely without harming it. I hope that makes sense. We've got to have the right equipment and the right knowledge in the medical field. We have to have the right equipment and the right knowledge in the sewing field as well if we're going to try to do DIY stuff. Okay? Yeah. All right, let's do some more sewing because I want to wrap this up in the next 15 to 20 minutes. I may not do all the sew-offs I prepared for, but I want to do some of them at least. Here's some of that protected full grain leather. This is going to be a real crazy sew-off. Look at the thickness of that. This is a type of leather that is coated by a chemical. It's coated by a chemical. It's going to be underneath the butt of Donald Trump and other rich people on those luxury jets. It's a real fine leather, but it also, because of that chemical coating, and it gives it that durability factor, it's going to raise that piercing threshold up considerably. And it's also a slippery leather like that other leather. So it's going to tend to slip even with adequate presser foot pressure without the use of a walking foot or a roller foot. It's going to tend to slip underneath the presser foot and over those feed dogs. So I'm really going to have to control my speed or try to control my speed with this sew off. Otherwise, we're going to get stubby stitches again. But we're probably looking at a sew off that's going to be about 10 to 12 ounces of leather. 10 to 12 ounces of leather on this sew off. It's going to be a booger of a sew off for this 1591. Even though it's got that direct drive, it's only got 0.5 amps of power. So we're going to have to really give that motor every opportunity to ramp up and to torque that leather through without compromising the stitch quality. And look at where our take-up leather is. Look at where our take-up lever is right now, our take-up arm. I got to really bring that up to the highest position to give us the best launch possible. All right. Let's see how we do on this. I would try my clips, but I don't know. I don't know if that's going to help us or not. I don't think it will. I think it's going to slip a little bit regardless. But let's see how we do on this real difficult sew off with this protected full grain leather. All right. All right. Keep your fingers crossed. Let me lower that camera down now so you can actually see what we're doing. All right. Protected full grain leather. Let me adjust this a little bit. I see that they're not lined up. I'm starting out with them not even lined up. So about 10 to 12 ounces of thickness on this leather. You can see it from the side, thicker than a belt. You'll see how we do with this 1591 from 1949. Here we go. Real slow, real slow, real slow, real slow, real slow, real slow. There we go. See that? If I get my big old clodhoppers in the right spot on that little button, this is what I'm working with. I get my clodhoppers in the right spot with that little button right there. I can slow this machine down a little bit anyway. All right, let's take a look at this protected full grain leather, see how we did on that. I think I did a much better job of regulating speed than I did on that other leather. And this is even more of a difficult leather sew off. So hopefully we got a great result. And to point to Tim's question, hopefully we got page 34 stitching, page 34 stitching. All right, here's our top stitching, which looks absolutely, are you kidding me, drop dead gorgeous. That is gorgeous stitching. I'm going to start by saying we're at page 34 right now, Tim. Oh, wow. Wow. Holy mackerel. Yes. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That is some gorgeous, gorgeous stitching. Brag-worthy, page 34. Beautiful stitching. Look at the thickness of that again from the side. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Well, it's believable because we just did it live, didn't we? We just did it in a live stream. We turn it over, look at that lock stitching on the back. You wouldn't get this quality of lock stitching if we didn't take that upper tension through the service that I demonstrated for you earlier in the live stream. Having that upper tension fine-tuned like it is, having the right return on that take-up spring and everything else is going to give you the outcome like this. It's going to give you a stitch that is like, wow, wow. Absolutely gorgeous. Let's get really close on this lock stitching. Come on, camera. Come on. Unbelievable. Beautiful lock stitching. Gorgeous top stitching as well. Through about 12 ounces of full grain leather. That is impressive. That's impressive. I'm going to set that to the side. And I think based on the time we have, I'll do two more sew-offs. I'm going to do another leather sew-off, and then I want to do a sewing in a circle as a final wrap-up as we bring the live stream to a close. So the leather I'm going to do next is equally difficult. This is a hardened leather. It's going to be used in a lot of the equestrian circles for different things, like the things, I don't know what they're called. I know that Tim and Teresa are very smart on horses because they have Izza. Izza is their horse. The thing that goes over the horse's face that the reins connect to, anyway, whatever that thing is, they'll oftentimes use this type of leather because it's rigid and it molds to the face of the horse. But whatever it is, it's a hardened leather. We're probably looking at right around 8 ounces of leather if I show it to you like that. So going through this, even with a leather needle, a size 116 Schmetz leather needle is going to be a difficult task because this stuff is super, super hard. It's not pliable. It's not bendable. So I'm going to go ahead and get that underneath the presser foot. We'll see if we can get through this much leather after this Schmetz needle is starting to get a little bit tired. Starting to get just a little bit tired after going through all these other sew-offs. Yeah, hopefully we get a great result. Hopefully we get another page 34 result. All right, let me get that into place. We want to have enough especially on this leather material. We want to have enough of that presser foot on that leather that we're going to get proper traction from the get-go. I'm going to lightly rock the balance wheel, just see if we get some nice movement with it. Yep, she's starting to move in nicely. Okay, let me slide it back again a little bit. And I'm really going to try to control my speed on this as well. I'm going to try to control my speed. All right, so about 8 ounces of hardened leather on Stevens 1949 Singer 1591, driven by a 0.5 amp potted motor. 0.5 amps, only 1/10 of an amp more than a featherweight. Let's see how we do. All right, here we go. Come on, buddy. Come on. I think I may have just broken the thread. I just broke the thread. See that? I just broke the thread. This stuff is so dense. It's so hard that the thread, I'm using standard Coates & Clark dual duty XP thread. The thread is not strong enough to be pushed and pulled through this leather. I'm going to try it one more time. We're not going to give up on this. I'm going to give it one more try, and then we'll go to our final sew off. But that's the thing. The setup you have, the setup that you have can determine how far you can get through certain sew offs. These 2 layers, if I do a single layer, I think we'd be okay. But these 2 layers might be too much for the type of thread that we have on this machine right now. It's just not strong enough. It's not strong enough to go through that. So I'm going to get this threaded back up again. I'm going to cut my end because it's all frayed. Needle was fine. The thread was like, I don't know if I'm up to this, buddy. I don't know if I'm up to this. I'm going to try it one more time, and then we'll have to, maybe what I should do is 1 layer and then go to 2 layers, huh? 1 layer and then 2 layers, add a second layer to it. All right. Oh, and this is a good opportunity. I'm not glad that the thread broke, but it's a good opportunity to tell you that our setup for the needle on this machine, you've got to put the flat side to the left. So the flat side is on the left, and we're threading it from right to left. Flat side on the left, threading from right to left. I could get that one other thread. There's another thread guide just above the needle. Get that in there too. Come on, buddy. There we go. So flat side to the left, threading from right to left. We're going to try this one more time. But I think this time I'm going to play it safe. See, our thread actually broke. That Coates & Clark thread is really good thread, but it's not quite strong enough. So I'm going to try a single layer. I'll try a single layer, and then we'll add that second layer to it to see if we can pull off the second sew off. I'm pretty confident we can pull off the first one. The Coates & Clark is strong enough to do that, but it may not be strong enough for that second layer. All right, so let's do a single layer, see if we can pull this off. Again, this leather is very, very hard. It's very hard, and it really creates a lot of friction as that needle is trying to sweep through with that thread, and we broke it. I broke it. All right, here we go. Let's try it again. All right, so we got through 1 layer. Let's take a look at the stitching, and then we'll see if we can add that second layer, see if we can pull it off. And again, this is a hardened leather, so we might have some tension things that we would have to look at if we were going to be sewing it all day long. That's our top stitching. Very, very nice. Look at the hole that needle at size 100 through this leather. Look at that other line of stitching that we did where the thread broke. Oh my gosh. It's like sewing patio blocks, y'all. It's like sewing patio blocks. This is the tough of tough leathers. You got to go with a better or a different type of thread if you want to go through multiple layers of this stuff. Real nice stitching. A little slight tilt, which tells me that we would we were going to be sewing a single layer of this stuff all day long, we would back off our upper tension just a little bit so that that bobbin case can pull down a little bit harder to define that top stitch. But all in all, a beautiful top stitch. Let's look at that lock stitch on the back. Absolutely drop dead gorgeous lock stitch. That's a page 34 lock stitch, to say the least. Beautiful, beautiful lock stitch. All right, we're going to take one more swing at the second layer of hardened leather. If the thread breaks again, that will tell us that the machine can do it. The machine can do it very, very nicely, but it will tell Stephen that if he wants to sew leather at that level, he's going to have to go to a different type of thread. Yep, different type of thread, a little bit stronger, maybe a Kevlar thread. A Kevlar thread would probably do it. Okay. Now, the other thing I could try is right now we had them facing the same way. If we go the opposite way, that will make it a little bit easier because the hardest part of the leather is up here. It's a little bit softer on the nap side. So let's see if we can pull off a back-to-back sew off. If not, then we at least know. All right, let me try it again. Two layers of hardened leather. The first time the thread broke. Let's see if we can get through it a second time because we flipped the direction of the leather. Now, instead of the same way, we've got it back to back. All right, here, let's see what we can do. All right, keep your fingers and toes crossed. Here we go. Nice and slow, nice and slow, nice and slow, nice and slow, nice and slow. And that helped, didn't it? Instead of going the same way with having the top and the top, we went top to back and we just softened it a little bit by letting it go through that second layer with the nap facing up instead of the nap down. And we were able to pull it off like we couldn't before. So I'm going to leave the thread attached. That upper row is the one we just did. You still see the thread is attached. The bottom row is the one we did the first time. This is the one we did second time on the top. The only thing I noticed is that the stitch is maybe just a hair bit shorter. So that means I was probably sewing a little bit too fast. But some beautiful, beautiful, beautiful top stitching. Absolutely gorgeous. I like the first row, I like a little bit better, but we were going through two layers on the second row. If I turn it over, how we do on the lock stitch? See that? That DIY we did on that upper tension for a 1591 we did near the beginning of this live stream, it just doesn't miss. It just maintains gorgeous, gorgeous. That's through two layers of hardened leather. And look at that lock stitching. That's why maintenance on your sewing machine is so critical. If you don't feel comfortable doing it yourself, then send it to me. Send it to Susie and me, and we'll take care of it. Drop dead gorgeous lock stitching through all of that leather. The first time we broke the thread, and the second time Coates and Clark said, give us another try. Give us another try, Scott. And look at what we pulled off. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Oh my goodness gravy. That's crazy, folks. That is the thick of thick. So we have one more sew off, sewing in a circle. We're going to sew in a circle. It looks like we're still blessed with an audience of over 1,300 people, but no one is liking I guess maybe they're going to make me wait. They're going to wait until we're done with the live stream and then go, okay, we'll like it now. We'll like it now. Whatever. You can like it or not like it. I don't care. I do care, but I don't care, because we do it for the greater good and for the thousands and thousands of people that come to the channel, the tens of thousands that come every month. Someone's going to look at this and go, oh my gosh, I didn't know a 1591 could do that. That hardened leather, oh my goodness. Absolutely amazing. All right, let's sew in a circle. I got to find some fun music to do that too. Let's find some fun music. Thank you to everybody. As I said in the previous live stream, if you've got a birthday this month in March, soon we're going to be going into April. If you've got a birthday, happy birthday to you. And so glad to have you as part of the Cow Country family, hoping that eventually, you will come out of the shadows and join us in the live chat. That would be really cool. And there are extra steps to be able to do that. If you don't know how to do that, Google it and don't necessarily believe that whatever artificial intelligence is telling you is correct. So I would fact check it for sure. All right. Out of respect and honor for our friends from Wisconsin, Teresa and Tim and Izza as well, I'm going to end this final sew off with some polka music. Yeah. God bless everybody. This, by the way, is Italian leather. I'm still going, folks. I'm still going. I haven't run out of thread yet. Ha ha! Yeah.